another edition of Ljubljana Talks in 2024 here at IBTM. And with Goraz, we have another great guest to talk to. We're going to talk to Molina, DEI Consultant. Now, your title, DEI Consultants, it means you work with diversity, equity, and inclusion. But tell us a little bit more.
Okay. So when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we really want to focus about what are the needs that everybody has in terms of different disabilities, people that have different backgrounds that must be connected or not with this type of requirements. People that there are from different groups, for example, people from the LGBT community, or people that are, for example, coming from the neurodivergent categories. So the thing is that covering all the peoples that has requirements in terms of, in this case, regarding the tourism and the events industry. So, because the original thing is that when we talk about diversity, is how diverse we are. And also, but the next step will be to talk about the inclusion, right? So that will be how we do it to make them participate.
Isn't this covered also in so-called SDGs of United Nations, partly, which we sometimes use also as a regenerative effect of the meetings industry? Is that true, or this is not really covered well there?
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
It is on the S, of course, of the SDGs. So there is basically the social aspect that we need to approach, and that will be mandatory for all the companies. Of course, there is. Yes.
When I was preparing for this conversation, I came to your PhD about museums and the inclusion and democratization of cultural institutions, which goes perfectly to which fits perfectly to our industry. Absolutely, I see a lot of similarities. Can you elaborate this amazing work you did? And tell us how can we implement all what you figure out in our industry?
Yes, so the thing is that when I was writing my PhD, the idea was to deliver something that was very practical and that it was not just remained in the academia, so something that the industry could work on, hands-on. So I developed a model to measure accessibility. In that case, it was specifically for people with disabilities and other special needs in museums. But the model, it was pretty simple. I tested in a museum, the Science Museum here in Barcelona. And the thing was that I evolved the model to be used for another industries, for example, on the tourism offices too. And the end result is that you really know, after covering all the different criteria that it covers the model, how accessible or not, and exactly in which specific areas is accessible or not. It could be in a hotel, or it could be a tourism office, or anywhere. So
if we talk about what you do, could you give us an example of what you do? Let's start with that.
Yes. So after you have to think that I started to write my master's thesis already on accessibility in tourism on 2009. So since a long time ago. So what happened is that I have seen that many of the accessibility measures that you can implement somewhere could be very transversal for many other groups. Okay, not just for people with disabilities, the same the same improvement that you can do in let's say in one space, a ramp, could be used by one person who is disabled, who has a wheelchair user, but it could be also used for somebody that broke his leg and is using crutches, or somebody a family with a stroller. So many different profiles of users can be using this application. So the idea for me was to zoom up from accessibility to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and try to say, okay, so now we're going to see all these improvements working in terms of need, all these improvements which publics are covering, right? So now what I do is, so first of all, what I found is that there is not knowledge about what is even accessibility. So first thing, and obviously all the other requirements. So first what I do is all the training, capacity building for all the tourism chain. And then, of course, there is also need to audit. So, how, and what I'm doing in my company or in my service. And the last one is like the consultancy. So, okay, so I help you to write a DEI plan for your organization. So we're going to see how are you working internally and externally, and then you will have like an objective just to work on the next steps. So basically, this is the three axes that I work for.
Now we are here at IBTM.
Yeah.
It's one of the leading events of the meetings industry. And if we look around the space that's around us, do you see things that you would say are not inclusive or could be corrected, or that they're great, that they tick all the boxes?
Yeah. Well, yes, there's always there is room for improvement, I guess. But there are some basic things which are that are mandatory. And I would say that if you have to think about, okay, if I'm a person who has a disability or not, one of the most important things is that events are very tiring. We need spaces to rest. Everybody, not just people with disabilities. Yeah. Everybody needs spaces to rest. Everybody needs spaces to have like tap water. Everybody needs to go to the bathroom and don't have to be in line for 10 minutes, because maybe I can stand, but nobody can. Not everybody can. So we have to think about...
You're right.
And then, for example, if you are in a bathroom and you are for the LGBT community, you have to choose to one bathroom or to another, but maybe you don't want to. So why don't we have...
That was my next question, actually.
Okay, so...
You nailed it, but if I'm your client, actually, and I'm organizing an outdoor festival, and if I want to be inclusive, how should I arrange this toilet area, which is an intimate place, Mm-hmm. One of the few intimate places, if we do not organize these zen zones where we can escape from the hustle-bustle of this trade show. So how should I do that, to be really in line with what you're writing, doing, and so on? This is an interesting question to me,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very basic. It's pretty basic. It's in the case of the example of the bathrooms. It's that easy that you just have to have non-gender bathrooms.
Yeah.
Everybody is welcome.
Cool.
And that's it.
Cool.
So yes, there are many things that you have to think when you are like organizing an event, like the booths, are they accessible or not? Depending on that, you will have people that will be accessing or not to the booth. Then the stages, are there ramps in the stage? Because everybody can just up. Then representation, is your event representative enough? So there is a diverse group of people being part of it. And the staff, what about the staff? Can we see like diverse people working in the event? And not just, from the companies, from the organizations, also from like the venue.
Yeah, very good point. Yesterday we talked with the organizers of Burning Man, which was Utopia. It was Utopia built up in the middle of desert, actually, and they created an inclusive place. The main, I would say, principle of the festival was inclusivity. Am I right, Jan? I don't know how exactly they named this, but is there any standard for it, or how can we follow this actually? What should we do as event organizers? How can we really create fully inclusive events? Where to start?
Yeah, there are the basics, but one thing that I always say is that you really need to know your client, because there are very basics, but some of them are related with which is the profile of your attendees. If I'm organizing a tech, for example, congress, with a specific profile of attendees that, for example, has men or not men, but for example, people with neurodivergence, which is very common on the tech industry, you have to provide specific resources for them. For example, like isolation rooms. But if you are, for example, organizing, a congress for families, which is the main topic, so this is completely different one. So you really need to know what is your future attitude.
I think IBTM actually did some of their homework in this regard, because I noticed that they actually changed some of the toilets that used to be equal male and female toilets, there's much more female now. So they know that our industry is quite, I would say, predominantly female in many extent. But let's take that into a form of a question.
Okay.
Looking at the meetings industry, how good is our industry in the DEI perspective? Are we doing our job properly? What should we do better? What should we do different?
I mean, there is room. I said there's also room for improvement from the industry, especially because there is this need to understand what it means when you are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. For now, there is many people that is already getting what it's about physical accessibility, which is great. But the thing is that the first step is to understand the whole idea, right? So one thing that I see like very commonly is that, for example, right now it's just a tick on the box. So I have the ramp, and I have the interpreter, and I have the captioning.
More about features, not about benefits, am I right?
It's about, so okay, I'm covering all this, so that's it. But it's not understood. Because that's what I was mentioning this morning in my presentations. It's you have to understand like being an event as an experience. So to have an experience, a good one or the bad one, depends for many people depends in all those things.
Yeah.
Because you said it's about the experience. Now, events are often about the experience. We always say the experience is what creates an event. The event is memorized because of the experience, of the content, of, we are always chasing the never done, never seen before. And often there is, for instance, excessive lighting, there is effects, and we forget that there is people who are sensorically sensitive. How do you see, how can brands, how can organizers try to create the same kind of an experience for those who perhaps cannot have that in the most basic way that it was designed in?
The thing is that we have a good news, which is that we have a lot of technology that we can just help us a lot in this journey. And it's, for example, like mentioning that there's nowadays we can have like a great speaker, for example, on the stage who has a physical disability, or for example, who is blind, and presenting a PowerPoint thanks to technology.
Yeah.
Right. So we have a lot of like app application, different ways that we can include all the diverse people in the event industry. But we need this trick to understand, and then because once you understand something, you can just start to work on.
So AI is definitely a helpful tool, huh?
There are many things that we can use AI just as captioning, and a lot of things that before it was like a hard work to do on time and properly, and now helping with this. But behind the AI, there will be somebody like human thinking about why the use of it. So at the end, we are working with people and for people, and we need them, even if we have tech.
So definitely your approach is part of experience design as we know it, or design thinking. This is where I see a connection, but also it perfectly fits to sustainability actually, so to the social dimension. But how aware we are about that? Not really, I think so, because only when we measure and only when we put euros into that field, then it makes sense to many people. So can you comment that a little bit?
The thing is that we are at the point that, not that long ago, people was thinking about. So, what do you mean about sustainability and environmental sustainability and measuring the carbon footprint? And nowadays, it's something that nobody gets about this. The issue is that when are we going to get this point in terms of social approach of sustainability? And that's I mentioned before. If you say that you are sustainable, you have to be interiorized that you are socially sustainable too. If not, you are not. But this is something that people don't want to hear about. Okay.
I'm gonna be a little bit provocative now.
Okay.
And I'm gonna ask you a question which actually derives from a conversation I had about 10 days ago with the head of a catering company. We had an event, and at the event, basically 24 hours, we got the final, less than 24 hours, we got the list of all the allergies and food specialities. And we get the list, the food is prepared accordingly, so it was all very last minute. And then as it is being served, people go, oh, I want to have that. So people that said, I'm going to be vegetarian, all of a sudden are eating steak. And this is something that allegedly, according to him, is happening more and more. So people claim to have certain food preferences and specialities, and then they flip, and then they have to throw away food that was originally prepared for them, and they might run out of food for somebody else. Mm-hmm. Now, so this has, of course, been on the table for a while. We know that it's been a problem, it has been addressed, but what he said, and it kind of triggered my thinking, is those who really have a problem are the ones who are then being punished because nobody's taking this stuff seriously anymore. And my question with the DEI is, do you see that there's a threat that we might go full in saying, yeah, we need this and that and this and that, but we're not really considering what are those needs of the specific attendees at that event? Do you think it could become that kind of a blur as well?
Coming back to your example, I mean, I'm vegetarian, so I found this issue everywhere. The thing is that if we need, from the inclusive perspective, and it's also related with the inclusive design, which also works like this, everything should be for everybody. So if you find that if you are in a catering and there is no meat there, everybody, even myself, could eat. But if there is any vegetarian option, I mean, I cannot do it. But the rest, yes. So at the end, you have to maximize your investment. And it's the same like if you want to apply that for every design that you have to do. This is for catering, but it could be for everything. Okay, signage. If you are working, for example, on the signage of the venue, if you use signage that it's inclusive, like pictograms, everybody can use it. Everybody understand.
It's true.
So maximize. I don't know. I don't understand like many languages, but for me, it's easy to understand like the sign of bathroom.
No, you're absolutely right. So we are coming to the end of our discussion. So usually we finish with fire questions. But before that, I would like to ask you to wrap up why actually we need you as a consultant in 3 words.
In 3 words?
Yes.
Because my objective is to trick the events industry to an inclusive and diverse industry.
Bravo. I love it. And the fire question is summer or winter?
Always summer.
Always summer.
Always summer. Beer or wine?
White wine.
White wine. Very specific. One more from me. The beach or the mountains?
The beach.
IMEX or IBTM? Oh, that one is hard.
This is hard. Well, let's say IBTM because I'm from Barcelona, but IMEX because I really want to just go and try there.
Super. Thanks, Monica, to being our guest and for this amazing discussion. And stay tuned. We are coming back in 5 minutes.